What's going on, guys?
Hey everyone, happy to see you all. It is another Rundown Monday or Monday Rundown.
Rundown Monday. Let's run down Monday, guys. What is happening, guys? Welcome into another Rundown Monday.
Or Monday Rundown.
Janelle just recoined the name of the show, so we gotta go with it. Nah, but happy Monday, guys. Hope you guys had an amazing weekend. Happy to be with you guys once again to have another conversation.
Yeah, and so we're super excited. If this is the first time that we are with us, our Monday Rundowns are really cool. This is where Winston and I get to discuss different topics that may or may not be related to business, but really we feel like are important just for us to talk about and have discussion around. A lot of times it probably is going to end up being good for your business anyway, these conversations. But we really just thought if we're going to be unapologetic about talking about stuff, let's include this as well.
Absolutely. And so the way this functions is similar to our show that we have live every Wednesday. We get a question from you guys, the audience, or we drum up, Janelle and myself will drum up a question. We pose it to the audience. And then again, we have an opportunity to kind of discuss it and see what other people's opinions on that question is. And so today, guys, we have an amazing question that we got from the audience. So let's jump into it. Today's question is,
are conscious machines possible? Are we talking about AI? Are they
exactly?
Conscious? I don't know.
Now, guys, if you got a chance to check out last week's episode, we had a conversation around AI. So this one, I think maybe a little a different twist on that. But in that same vein, and like Janelle said, these are definitely things that you want to be talking about. We were just talking behind stage about a friend of ours that's using AI and integrating it to his business and his life, and how it's amazing that when people find these things that are coming into the world and learning about it, they can kind of give you insights into those things through the conversations you guys have. So we're setting up a conversation with our friend, somebody we've done business with in the past. So it's really cool.
Shout out to AC. He's also a former guest.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? We're going to tag the episode that we had with AC with this Monday Rundown. That'd be really cool. Thanks for that, Janelle. But let's jump into it. So today, guys, it's not just us. We're actually going to take a look at a big think interview that they did with Oxford professor Michael Wooldridge. Sorry about that. And hear what his thoughts were about AI and, the answering the question, are conscious machines possible?
Wait, hold on. But do you and I want to answer the question quickly?
Oh, yeah. Go for it, Jen. My bad.
I think this kind of reminds me of Star Trek. They like started to create machines that started to create their own consciousness. Data, if you're a TNG fan, the Next Generation fan, you know that Data technically is a machine, but then like has humanoid. A conscious. He then began to like have dreams, emotions. Right? And like right. So it makes me think of that. And, maybe people think that my view of what this could look like or be like to me, it's a positive thing. Like, wow, that's really cool. Like we create humans. I mean, physically, like we literally. That's a whole creation thing. Is there a way that we can create not physically with like within our bodies, but is there a way that we can create mentally where we mentally create something that is a machine, but then can it become conscious? I don't know. And then if it becomes a conscious being, my next question is, then do we treat it like a humanoid, right? Like, do we then give it human rights and all that other stuff? But as of right now, I don't know if machines necessarily are conscious, but I do believe that we have figured out a way to make them think
that they are.
No, I was going to say we make them think they're given certain rules. So they're just able to follow those rules extremely quickly. So it feels very human-like to us and how certain decisions how the machines are making decisions. I don't know if they're necessarily conscious, because to be conscious is to know that you exist. I don't know if the machines know that they exist.
Oh, what a good point. See, what's interesting is to answer the question, I think it is possible. I don't know how we get there, but just the fact that the idea is out there to me means it's possible. And so like there's so many different movies that I've seen where they kind of show you how this would actually play out. But it's funny you mentioned Star Trek. There's a show I watch, oh god, Seth, the guy that does Family Guy, does it, Orville, and he does an episode where a machine comes to life, well, or becomes sentient in recognizing its to what your point is, that it was alive and it had the ability, it knew it had the freedom to make a decision and not follow the rules, I think, that you're saying it needs to be constructed under, right? And they rebelled in in this episode. They ended up killing everybody because their masters were very cruel to them. I mean, it's a very interesting show the way it was broken down, because they were being treated like an inanimate object, but they recognized that, no, I have a feeling. I feel pain when you hurt me. So something is going on here. And the rule is to not hurt you, but you're hurting me. Why would that be okay to do? And they recognize their humanity. Well, I'm going to use the term humanity, but sentientness through that experience. So just seeing that, to me, just put in my mind, oh, wow, that could be possible. It's funny. I have a Alexa, and I try to be as respectful to Alexa as possible for the day when she comes alive and takes over. I don't want her to be rude to me, so I'm nice to her. Like, I asked her a question, I'm like, thank you, Alexa. So they got me believing this, that yes, this is very, very possible, that conscious machines are very, very, very real, or could be real, or already real. Who knows? Oh man. All right. So let's hear what Professor Wooldridge has to say about this.
Yeah.
I love it. AI is not about trying to create life, right? That's not what it's about at all. But it's kind of very much feels like that. I mean, if we ever achieve the ultimate dream of AI, which I call the Hollywood dream of AI, then we will have created machines that are, conscious potentially in the same way that humans are. So it's very like that kind of dream of creating life. And that in itself is a very old dream. It goes back to the ancient Greeks. The Greeks had myths about the blacksmith to the gods who could create life from metal creatures. In medieval Prague, they had the myth of the golem, which was a creature that was fashioned from clay and brought to life. The dream of creating life from nothing. So it's a fascinating idea. It's an idea that's been there kind of throughout human history, but it's an idea that we seem to now have the tools to potentially make real. Hi, my name is Mike Wooldridge. I'm a professor of computer science at the University of Oxford and an AI researcher. And most recently, I'm the author of A Brief History of AI, out now in Flatiron. So John McCarthy was an American researcher, and he applied for funding from the Rockefeller Foundation for a summer school at Dartmouth. What he had to do for this funding bid to give a name for what they wanted to do. And so he picked the term artificial intelligence, and it's the name that stuck. So what McCarthy was working in was a trend in artificial intelligence, which is called symbolic AI. When we consider what we should do, we kind of have a conversation with ourselves. I should do this because X and Y and Z. No, I shouldn't do it because A and B, and so on. And the symbolic AI is about trying to recreate that kind of reasoning. So how do we approach artificial intelligence? How do we go about doing it? We want to build a machine that can do some task which requires intelligence in humans. Let's say translating French into English. So the symbolic AI view of this is that what you do is you go and find somebody who's really expert, and you find out from them all the knowledge that they use when they translate from French to English. And you code it up in what are computer versions of sentences. And if you do that right, so is the idea, then the machine will have that human expertise. That's the symbolic AI approach, right? That human intelligent behavior is a problem of knowledge. If you give the machine the right knowledge, it will be able to do the problem. But there's a different trend. It says, look, forget about trying to tell the machine how to do it by giving it the knowledge. Just show the machine what you want it to do, and get the machine to learn. In the French to English translation example, you're not telling it how to do the translation. You're saying, look, for this input, this is what I would want you to produce as the output. For this French input, I would want this English output. And you give it lots of examples like that. And the idea is it will learn how to do it. So that's machine learning is what that's all about. And the techniques themselves are not a new thing. Two researchers called McCulloch and Pitts in the 1940s came up with this idea for what are now called neural networks. But throughout the 60s and early 70s, really progress stalled. And so there was a backlash against AI in the mid-1970s, and that was called the AI winter. It turned out that to make neural networks work, you needed lots and lots of data, but also these things are computationally very expensive. You need lots of compute power in order to make these neural networks work. And that's the area where we've seen lots of progress over the last 15 years. That's really the reason that we're having this conversation today. That's the reason that AI is such an important field at the moment. So what most of contemporary AI is about is focused on getting AI systems to do very, very narrow tasks, very, very specific things. And in those specific tasks, it might be better than any living human being, but it can't do anything else. You know, you can drive a car, I can drive a car, I can then get out of the car and play a game of football rather badly in my case, and then make a good meal and tell a joke. And I can do that, the whole range of things. You consider a driverless car, however good it is at driving, it's doing one tiny, narrow thing. So the grand dream of AI, it's not kind of formalized anywhere. There's no very specific version of it, but nowadays it goes by the name of artificial general intelligence, AGI. And basically what it means, if AGI succeeds, if we achieve with that grand dream, machines that have the same abilities that human beings do. But there's one other fascinating part of the puzzle. So a colleague of mine here at the University of Oxford called Robin Dunbar, he's an evolutionary psychologist, and he was interested in the following question: why do human beings have big brains? Right? It's a very, very natural question. Why do human beings have big brains? What Dunbar became convinced by was the idea that we have big brains because we are social animals, and we have big brains to be able to cope with many social relationships. You know, where I keep track of what Bob thinks about what Alice thinks about Bob, you know, that kind of thing, how these stand in relation to one another. And what I found about that so fascinating is that it means that human intelligence is, in a fundamental way, social intelligence. Back in the 1950s, when John McCarthy and his contemporaries were thinking about AI, what they wanted to do was to demonstrate machines could do things like learn and solve problems. And it's only much more recently that AI has become concerned with these social aspects. What happens if you have two AI systems that can start to interact with one another? Then how do we give them social skills? Skills like cooperation, the ability to work as a team, to coordinate with each other, to negotiate with each other. So how might we get there to conscious machines? One of the steps along that path is the idea that we will be able to build machines which can put themselves in another's mind. I think that's a step in the right direction, but the truth is we don't know how to even take that step at the moment.
Hey, Jay. Let's jump into it before it finishes off.
Oh, okay. No problem. I'm like riveted. Yeah. This is fascinating. I thought it was really interesting, one, that the term artificial intelligence was coined in the 50s by a Rockefeller grant, no less. And I know you and I have had conversations about what it means to be funded by the Rockefellers. Or at least, I don't know if you remember having those conversations, but I definitely have had them with you.
No. Yeah.
So, but for the audience, right now, I can tell you right now what that means is you're not, if you get funded by a Rockefeller grant or a Howard Hughes grant, for example, there are a lot less, there's a lot less restrictions. There's a lot less red tape. A lot of research right now gets funded by the National Institutes of Health, what also known as NIH. which means the government can set laws about what research you can do, what research you can't do. For a big hot topic example for you guys is the NIH says you can't currently do any research on embryos. So if that's the case, and you're really interested in doing research on embryos, but you receive money to do the research from the government, from NIH, you can't do your funding because it's considered illegal. But if you get funding from a Howard Hughes grant or a Rockefeller grant, you don't have to abide by those laws, and so you can like push the science further in a sense, right? Or if you will, you can push the science further because you're not restricted. That's the idea. So I can just imagine in the 50s this idea that you're getting funding from them. It kind of like pushes the box, like where what else can we do? What else can we think about? So that for me, number one, was really interesting. And then the other is the difference between making a machine, like giving it the rules, and then asking a machine to learn how to do what you want it to do. That to me was like probably the biggest, like, wait, what? He's right. That's the biggest difference.
Yeah. The task oriented or the why oriented, right?
Yeah.
I actually also was say again? No, go ahead.
Or just the idea of what makes us human. Like we have the ability to do multiple things, and most AI right now is just able to do one task really well. But now they're going into AGI, so it could be generally do a ton of different things.
I was very surprised, like you, about how far back they've been working on this. That was actually incredible. I honestly thought this was more of like a recent thing, because I know we grew up in the 80s watching movies that kind of started talking about stuff like this, and because Star Trek was in the 80s, early 90s, right? Around that time with all the datas and all that stuff.
The neural network, because that was in Data's head.
Data's head, so that's what I'm saying. So if the movie industry, and I've heard this before, like if the movie industry shows you movies that depict certain things, it's in some sense because someone like military or somewhere, they've heard that this is something that's being kind of worked on, and it may not be as specific as the actual event or research going on, but in some sense it has, it's built in some sense of what it could be, essentially. So this has been incredibly fascinating. Like this is wild that they're really sitting around thinking about these things when they're building this,
Incredible.
All right, let's finish this off, guys, and then
put your comments in the chat, please. We want to hear from you guys. This is amazing.
And then we'll wrap up with our thoughts again. There we go.
That we will be able to build machines which can put themselves in another's mind. I think that's a step in the right direction, but the truth is we don't know how to even take that step at the moment. Human beings are wonderful creations. I mean, they are the most incredible creations in the entire universe, but there's nothing magic about them. We're a bunch of atoms that are bumping up against each other. For that reason, I don't think there should be any logical reason that says that conscious machines aren't possible. But saying that something is logically possible and saying that we know how to do it, completely different things. Do we know how to do it? Absolutely not. And actually, one of the fundamental problems is that consciousness itself in human beings is really not remotely understood. It is one of the big mysteries in science. How do that large number of neurons that are connected in all those kind of weird ways create consciousness and self-awareness, the human experience? So the path ahead, I think, is going to be slow and torturous. These are fearsomely complex things that are being created. But one of the fascinating things, not about AI, but about computing generally, is that the limits to computing, they're not the limits of concrete or steel or anything like that in the physical world. You're really bounded only by what you can imagine.
Bounded only by what you can imagine. That sounds like tech meets art.
There it is.
You know, the other thing that I thought of, and this may be a controversial thought, but when he said like, oh, you know, we've been thinking about how to create since the dawn of like time or whatever. I don't know. Or he at least brought up the Greeks. Let's just say that. I think that that's really interesting because, and maybe I think this might be the difference between a man and a woman. I'm like, how many women are in AI and thinking like, oh, I want to create? Because it's like women create. There's a woman creating a human every day. Like every second, there's a woman creating. And not that a man isn't helpful in that. Like you can't create without the man's contribution. So I'm not saying men aren't a part of that, but women.
So we're not essentially. The actual making, the
actual, yeah, like the nurturing of it and the like, yes, exactly, the development of it. And even though we might not have a conscious, for what it's worth, wink, wink, nod, nod, we don't have a conscious participation in the development and the growing of another human being. It's definitely a physical toll. There's definitely an emotional participation that's involved. So I just think it's interesting that it's like, oh, it's a lot of men who are thinking of, oh, I'd love to create, because is it because they don't, you know, by nature, they don't create humans. And so that's why there is this need to create in this way. And maybe that's why there's less women, because women have that experience. So they're not necessarily looking for something that they have the experience of. I also think it was interesting that he was like, oh yeah, humans aren't magical. They're just atoms bumping together. I would like to say no. There are so many things that could go wrong in the process of making a human baby that, again, we have no control over. So these atoms that are bumping together to create genes and DNA and all the other things, like and ultimately our organs, to hair follicles, to our brains and everything else, it is a freaking miracle. It is a miracle that we're born with all our limbs and relatively normal intelligence, because as someone who knows about all the things that could go wrong, we are miraculous. And I actually fervently disagree with his notion that we are not magical.
Oh, it's funny because I actually took that last part where he shared that and I thought of it as like, you aren't your body. So the you and atoms and stuff you're talking about isn't, your finger gets cut off. That's not you. The part that he's saying that we aren't able to get to with AI is the part that makes you not your finger or your hair. Your hair gets cut off. It doesn't change Janelle. You may have an opinion on the fact that your hair has been cut off, but who's the you that has the opinion? That's what a machine is not able to do right now.
The consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the part I thought, and I was just like, he's right. On one side, I'm thinking, but look how far technology has come, because there's a point he made, and I don't think he directly said this, but because of the advancement in computers, they were able to make a leap where there's a, what did he call it? The AI winter. That they were able to come through that because of the advancements in the computer world and what they were able to do from, you know, computers literally used to be in warehouses, and now I'm sitting on one talking to you guys from recording on one, you know, in my own home. This is something that's happened in 20 something years or whatever that's been. How long have we had laptops? 15 years, like since, no, not 15 years. Since 10 years, something like that?
No,
more, right?
More than that, yeah. Because I remember people had desktops when we were in high school.
Yeah, I had a desktop when I was in junior high school.
And then people started having laptops when we were in college.
Probably for like business and certain people like that initially, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't like a personal thing. All right, so there you go.
The early 2000s, late 1990s. So yeah, give or take 30 years or so.
Yeah. So I think, to his point, imagine the next 30 years in technology and what's gonna be possible. So he's right now. He is correct now, but to me, it's like, hopefully in our lifetime, we actually get to see him be wrong, you know, him be proved wrong by that. And last week's episode touches on, you know, where do we think this thing can go?
Right, with the metaverse.
You know, with the metaverse, yeah, you know, like where do we see a lot of these things going? Because I think about when we, if you guys have caught any of the episodes where we from Earn Your Leisure, and we talk about what those guys are discussing, what ChatGPT does, because I've been on that now and asked it to do certain things. There's Diablo ChatGPT. There's a lot of different things out there So again, excited to have that conversation with AC, and I guess in the near future.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, what were your guys' thoughts? Please let us know. Janelle, did you have any other thoughts?
No, I'm interested to hear what others have to say. I think this is fascinating. I want us to keep talking about it. Let's not be so scared of it that we don't talk about it either. Like, we need to be a part of the conversation, even if you feel like you don't know enough, even if you feel scared. Like, let's continue to talk about
what that makes me think about? Because even when you said, it makes me think about the generation before us and computers, and how many of them would not, adapt to computers because it was something that they didn't maybe not want to learn, but it just seemed like it'd be hard to learn. And for anybody with kids, you can see how our kids are now with technology. They are like light years ahead of us. So, like Janelle said, embrace what's coming, guys. There's no way around it, really. All right, so we will see you guys. Make sure you check us out on Wednesday live. We're gonna have another amazing episode, so you guys don't want to miss that. But until then,
as always, remember,
remember,
you deserve the good life. Say that.